For over 5 decades now, Nick Nolte has been one of Hollywood's top actors, and during that time, in a career that's covered both the big and the small screen, he's gained a huge amount of respect amongst his peers. So much respect has he gained, in fact, he's received multiple Academy Award and Emmy nominations. And as if that wasn't enough, he's also gone on to win a Golden Globe for Best Actor in 1991. In today's list, we will be looking at the top 10 Nick Nolte movies of all time.
A warrior does not give up what he loves, Dan. He finds the love in what he does.
Number 10, Affliction.
Looney Tunes, Jack, fucking Looney Tunes!
By the time the new millennium was coming around, Nick Nolte was already well established as an A-lister within the film industry. And it was this power which helped him to get the Paul Schrader-directed neo-noir thriller Affliction off the ground. Here, he would portray the role of Wade Whitehouse, a small-town cop tasked with investigating a suspicious hunting death. Of course, things quickly spiral from there, however, as more and more revelations about what really happened are revealed. But no matter how intricate the plot gets, Nolte is always able to ground it with a performance so strong, he's able to convince audiences he's the son of James Coburn. And this is particularly impressive, as he's only 13 years younger than him in real life.
Well, what the hell am I? A security guard? I mean, you hired me.
Number 9, North Dallas 40.
And Elliot, don't you piss in there.
Back during the early days of his career, Nick Nolte was still looking for that one big role which would solidify him as a figure to watch in the future. So luckily for him, this role would finally come in 1979 when he starred as Phil Elliott in the sports satire North Dallas 40. And in this one, his real-life rebellious streak would be tapped into perfectly, as he played a football player who couldn't be tamed and who would regularly draw the ire of his coach as a result. But in order to get fully prepared for the role, Nolte would do more than just tap into his own lifestyle. No, prior to filming, he'd go as far as to take part in an intensive boot camp with a number of professional football players of the era.
In the open, and the pass is no good.
Number 8, 48 Hours.
Now get this. We ain't partners, we ain't brothers, and we ain't friends.
One of Nick Nolte's most enduring mainstream hits, 48 Hours, would see him get to add more layers to his on-screen presence when he teamed up with Eddie Murphy in this buddy comedy. And while it was written as a vehicle for Murphy to let his comedic skills shine in the role of Reggie Hammond, a convict forced to work on a case with Nolte's inspector Jack Cates, the more experienced actor would easily hold his own here. In fact, so good was he at keeping up with the funny man, he would actually be allowed to improvise most of his dialogue throughout the movie, leading to some of its best gags being completely off the cuff.
Look at you got a $500 suit on, you're still a lowlife.
Yeah, but I look good.
Number 7, Under Fire.
What side are you on? I don't take sides, I take pictures.
While he may have been a very versatile actor, Nick Nolte's strength was always in his more dramatic roles, and this was rarely more evident than in the performance he gave in 1983's political thriller, Under Fire. But that's because in this one, he gets to play the role of Russell Price, a journalist who finds himself in Nicaragua during the last days of the corrupt Somoza regime. Of course, there's more to it than just that though, as, with him also getting involved in a love triangle with his co-stars Gene Hackman and Joanna Cassidy, there's plenty for him to sink his teeth into acting-wise. So with all this helping to propel the film towards box office success then, it would actually spark a mini-movement of similar movies being released over the remainder of the decade. In fact, it would only be a few years after this one that the likes of The Killing Fields, Salvador, and Cry Freedom would see the light of day too.
Somoza's a killer. I thought the war would end soon. How many reasons do you want?
Number 6, Mother Night.
Had I actually traveled to the Russian front, surely I would have died as Rosie predicted.
Based on the 1962 novel of the same name, written by Kurt Vonnegut, one of the greatest writers of his generation, it was always only going to be a matter of time before Mother Night was adapted onto film. The biggest surprise, though, was that it took so long to come around. But then, perhaps given the subject material at play here, there was a reason for this. Yes, both the book and the movie tell the story of a German playwright who, after the outbreak of World War II, is enlisted as a spy for the US government. And with Nick Nolte taking on the lead role, he's able to add a great degree of depth and pathos to the whole thing as his character infiltrates the Nazi party and gets to see the full depth of what they're doing and what it is his country is responsible for.
You should rot in hell, damn you! God in him.
Number 5, Peaceful Warrior.
The trash is anything that was keeping you from the only thing that matters. This moment.
By the mid-2000s, Nick Nolte's career had hit a bit of a lull after some personal issues had come to the forefront and caused people to begin worrying about his health. Of course, this did nothing to dull his acting ability though, something which was very evident in his portrayal of Socrates in Peaceful Warrior. Yes, here, like his namesake, he would get to impart a whole host of philosophical wisdom when he starts mentoring a young gymnast who has the goals of winning a national championship. But Nolte was more than prepared for this role when the time came to play it, and that was because he'd long been a fan of the novel on which the movie was based, with him having first read it several decades prior. Number 4. Lorenzo's Oil.
And I am not a scientist. I am a father. And nobody can tell me what dressing I put on my kid's salad.
George Miller may be better known for the high-paced action of the Mad Max series, but that doesn't mean he can't pull out a tearjerker when he needs to. And nowhere is this more evident than in his critically acclaimed drama, Lorenzo's Oil, the story of a couple, played by Nick Nolte and Susan Sarandon, who are desperately trying to find a cure for their son's rare genetic condition. Needless to say then, this one is filled with emotion, and Nolte plays his part in it all perfectly. What you may not know, however, is that much of the medical expertise found in the film's script was there because George Miller himself is actually a qualified doctor.
No researcher, no bloody foundation has the right to stop me from asking questions which might help me save him.
Number 3. Cape Fear.
How much money do you want?
Money? Cancer. Do I look destitute to you?
Put Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro together, and you can't really go wrong. It worked for Taxi Driver, it worked for Goodfellas, and it most certainly works for Cape Fear. Of course, it's not just the golden duo which makes this one great because, playing the role of a lawyer being terrorized by a man he'd previously failed to keep out of prison, Nick Nolte helps to put this remake a cut above the 1962 original. That said, in order to make himself appear less physically intimidating than his smaller co-star, he'd have to slim down prior to filming, all while De Niro himself was bulking up too, so as to seem bigger and musclier than he was.
He raped a 16-year-old girl.
You have a daughter around 16?
She's 15.
Number 2. The Thin Red Line.
Now, do you hear me, Starles? I want you to attack. I want you to attack right now with every man at your disposal.
Terrence Malick doesn't make a lot of movies. In fact, between the release of The Thin Red Line and his prior film, Days of Heaven, a full 20 years had passed. So when this war epic set during the Battle of Mount Austin was announced then, every actor in Hollywood wanted to be involved. And right there amongst them was Nick Nolte, someone who got to shine brightly by playing the role of Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Tall, just one of the many characters in the film whose name was only one syllable long. Of course, he wasn't the first choice for the role though, as, prior to him being cast, Harrison Ford would have actually turned it down. Perhaps it's lucky he did then, because this would end up being one of Nolte's best performances.
We're going all the way. Nothing's stopping us. It's high ground by nightfall.
Our number 1 pick is Warrior.
You stop the ship. You godless son of a bitch.
Nick Nolte may not be the focus of Warrior, but he's certainly the engine that drives it forward. And that's because, playing the role of the father to 2 MMA fighters, it's his decisions which shape what they do and who they become. The story here is a simple one, of course, with the brothers, played by Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton respectively, wanting to win a cage fighting tournament and claim the purse money they each so desperately need. But it's in this simplicity that a truly great film is born, something which is, of course, helped by the 3 stellar lead performances on display. In fact, so good was Nolte here, after he filmed his first scene at a local diner, the cast and crew would all give him a standing ovation for delivering such an excellent performance. Looking at the film's ratings, we find that Warrior received a strong 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb.com and a decent 71 from Metacritic, and Rotten Tomatoes would be particularly loving, giving it an impressive 84% on the tomato meter with an even higher score of 92% given by the audience.
Get the fuck out of here! Come on.
And there we have it, the top 10 Nick Nolte movies of all time. No doubt you have your own list, so be sure to let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and get alerted of our next video. We'll hope to see you soon!